So I got a chance to speak to Sean, who is the art director, and Preeti, who is the product manager at Riot Games, and this is how it went. Also, it's 7 a.m. and I completely forgot to remove the member goal and subscribe account from the screen, so I'm really sorry about that part. Please bear with me. I had a limited amount of time and a limited number of questions, so I hope that I've covered everything you guys wanted to know.
Okay, so as you guys know, this is Preeti and Sean. They're here to, answer questions about Phaseguard and just general queries you have, like Amy briefed regarding monetization or the development processes. So yeah, let's just start. We have Ankkita. She's the influencer from India and South Asia.
Hi.
Um, okay, I'll go first. I'll ask something. How do you decide what guns you add to a bundle?
Yeah. So I'll answer that with an additional component as well, is like the number of guns, right? Like there's always a consistency, right? There's always most commonly like 4 guns a melee. Sometimes we end up going less than that. I think like we'll always kind of take a look at like what makes the most sense for like creatively when it comes to a bundle. The example I like to use a lot is when we did Neo Frontier. It's like you had to use a sheriff in that one. You had to use a marshal, that kind of thing. Like especially looking at those as like what fits the thematic, but then also like what's been done before. If we've done, a sci-fi sheriff, maybe we're like, okay, well, is this a similar sci-fi sheriff? Are we basically going to be getting a kind of the same thing? And we kind of like start there, and it's just like looking at like what makes the most sense creatively, and then also kind of like which ones haven't we really done. I know a lot of players are like, when are we going to get like a super high tier stinger or something like that? And we're like, hey, maybe this is an opportunity. We kind of look at the distribution of what we've made and see if there's anything else to kind of like pull in there. I don't know if there's something beyond that, Preeti, you wanted to add?
No, not really. It's like we want to make sure that, all the guns that people use a lot get skins, but we also want to make sure that we don't end up in a situation where there's a gun that just doesn't get a skin for a really long time, which accidentally happened when we had too many Guardians, and then we said, oh, we need to make less Guardians, and then we looked at the calendar and we're like, it's been a year and a half and there hasn't been a new high-tier Guardian, which was a big mistake. Same thing with the Classic, actually, that happened accidentally.
And something... maybe it was accidental, maybe we were just learning like very early on when the game released, is like just trying to figure out like what players wanted and how much, like from a creative perspective, I might think like, oh, this makes sense, but then at the end of the day players might be like, I don't care about the creative, I just want like a cool gun. And so if you go back and look at Mage Punk, right, where it's like the first 2 iterations of Mage Punk didn't have a Phantom or a Vandal, and that was like me being very much just like, hey, like it doesn't make as much sense for these automatic weapons here. We should have very like the weapons that are single fire, because creatively that makes the most sense. But then we're like, no, at the end of the day, people want Vandals and Phantoms, so we should just, do that.
Okay, nice. Thank you for the answer. Okay, how do you decide on the theme of a skin line? Is it just like if you've done maybe something sci-fi like now, so you'll definitely wait 6 months before the next one, or is it just like who decides that and how does that happen?
I think there's like, again, 2 components to that. Like when it releases, definitely Preeti can kind of add to, but like what the idea is, it's like we have tons of ideas that come from all over the place. Like every member of the team is like, what if we did this, or what if we did that? And so we'll have to look. It's like you're saying, it's like, yeah, we wouldn't want to have, sci-fi skin after sci-fi for like 6 months, like everyone, because then players are like, all right, enough, we get it. But yeah, I mean, creatively, we do look at like, hey, what's inspirational to us? What are some sort of like things that we really like in pop culture or other media that we're like, hey, what's like Val's take on that kind of execution? A lot of us play other games. We're like, hey, I really like these like deep lore fantasy kind of games, whatever the case is. Like, can we inject some of that into our skins, which is where you get things like Sovereign and Forsaken. We like to craft our own sort of like stories when it comes to skins too. Nothing that actually translates back to like Valorant lore, but it's just good like creative juices for us to kind of play with ideas to say, hey, well, what if like we made this gun skin and it's like this faction, but then they turned evil and it became that thing, and we kind of just like play with that on our own. And it's fun. Sometimes it's like unintentional. I think like a good example there is protocol and glitch pop was always like the good evil or good versus evil kind of version of things. And protocol, I think when we made that, like we were looking for something that was like kind of sci-fi, kind of leaned into transformative aspects, and where it landed, we didn't actually intend from day one to be like a counterpart to glitch pop. But then through developing it, we're like, oh, this kind of makes sense. And we're like, oh, this is like the rebellious youth. This is like the oppressive force, and they can kind of be like at odds with one another. And so it's like fun for us, which is why like in the trailer, we decided to include that little like bit of the glitch pop trailer on the TV as the protocol robot like shoots it.
Okay. The next question I have is, how do you decide what skin is featured in our night market?
It's random.
It's totally random.
Random based on what you don't earn. So if you own it, then it won't be a night market. So yep, it's totally random.
Okay, is it like maybe if I don't have like a Guardian skin, then I might see a Guardian skin in my night market or something? It's not like that, it's completely random.
Completely random.
Now that we have gifting, I have two questions related to gifting actually. One is, would we be having, okay, so you can only gift bundles and knives now, right? Would you be having something like gifting Valorant points?
It's something we'd like eventually, but not currently planned.
Okay.
Because I agree, it would be nice to give someone Valorant points so they can buy an agent or a battle pass, or maybe they don't want to buy something now, but they want to buy it later. So I think it'd be nice.
Yeah, like, because I just had a friend almost gift me something from a night market, and then it was like, oh, wait, you can't send Valorant points. So,
Yeah.
Okay, and also, is there going to be an option to sell skins anytime?
No,
No?
no,
Never?
we won't do that. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Not even a trade,
Trade? Like you mean like
like
I
from
give you
players to players.
Mm-mm.
Uh,
Not right now.
Not right now. Okay.
Well,
okay.
no, but no plans.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to, I think, yeah, that's all I'll say. That's not something that I'm currently thinking about.
Okay, I have one last question. What was the design and thought process you guys had when designing the finisher for Phaseguard?
It's all you.
God. So yeah, this one was like, finishers in general are always like where we can inject the most amount of like fantastical elements to a skin, because you don't really have to be concerned for gameplay beyond like readability. It's like, I want to be able to see a gun on the ground, a spike, whatever the case is. So we decided to go like all out when we can. And I think like we tried playing around with a number of different ideas that basically helped bring that idea of like phasing through different dimensions into place. And we try and like test the limits with it, right? Like there's the very extreme version that's like, what if you get completely transported to a different place? And sometimes you can do that when you're able to stand still, like what we do with the champions finishers or with Primordium, where we sort of like surround you, or even Divergence, right? Where we kind of surround you in this like really, really big, elaborate environment. But we felt it would be way more impactful to let a player move through that environment. And so it was kind of like taking that idea of, Valorant uses portals all over the place, from like the way that the agents go from like one universe to the other. So we're like, hey, we want this to kind of feel like it's a extraction moment where you're like, hey, I finished my mission, I'm going home back to my universe. And so it's like the walls of my universe sort of like breaking down in front of me and being pulled into this like in-between zone as I sort of like load back into my own universe. And it was stuff that we had to validate like gameplay wise a lot, because we've never done something that big with that like massive of a takeover. And there were points where like during development where it's like the map was completely unreadable, where you're like, I have no idea where I'm going. And then there's other parts where we're like, well, it doesn't really feel like, sometimes it felt like you were underwater or whatever. So we wanted to like make it feel like it's like this interdimensional kind of thing. And I think we struck a good balance. I think like a really good test for this was like, what does it look like to see somebody outside of this bubble versus like if you're on the outside looking in, and sort of just playing around with all those ideas. I think there was definitely more that we could have done, but that like really helped like visually, I think, meet the requirements of what we were trying to do.
actually really like the skin. We just tried it last night in early access, and I love that when you're spectating it, there's like a second where the skin is in the face, I would say,
Mhm.
and then you can see a little bit through it. I was just holding it up to like other players' faces, and I'm like, I can see you through this. I really like that. It's a good skin line.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was like the big part of it. Trying to inject a little bit more fantasy into this, because at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't have that like fantastic element, it's like, it could just be like, oh, it's another recon or something like that. And like really wanting to like lean in to the Val lore and universe. It's like the agents are going, like the alpha agents are going to Corrode, to Omega Earth, and like trying to like tie that in with the story. So yeah, I think like trying to inject it where it made the most sense. Now, what I can tell you in addition to this is we tried to go like way more bonkers with that idea. So right now, like when you inspect, you see it phase through, and it kind of like, it's not compromising to gameplay. Like you're not actually able to kind of use that to see through, anything. It's really distorting. But what we actually tried in the beginning was making that somewhat tied to gameplay, where the original idea was that if you stood still for like 5 seconds or something like that, your entire gun and first person would kind of go into that mode. And it would kind of feel like you're like completely cloaked, invisible, like someone can't see you. And that we would maintain that so long as you weren't making any noise. So if you were like walking and not shooting or whatever, you would feel like you're a really stealthy person and all that kind of stuff. And then the moment you fire, kind of takes you out of it. We tried it. It was really confusing for people because they'd just be standing still, holding a corner, and then your gun starts doing this crazy thing. And you're like, wait, what's going on? And some people could have a misinterpretation. They're like, wait, am I invisible? Like, can they not see me? So that's like, we'll always start with like the extreme. Like, what's the biggest version of what we want to do? And then if that doesn't work for gameplay reasons, it's like, how do we still creatively achieve that?
Nice. Yeah, I noticed it was like you really had to like just go and be really close to their face to just see them through the skin. But it's a cool feature. I like that.
Yep.
Okay, those are all the questions I had.
I never thought I'd feel like this.